Spider-Man Brand New Day is finally out, and it might be the best Spider-Man movie of all time, bruh. And I know I said might, and I know I said best ever, but stick with me here. This is gonna be another brain dump. So let's jump right into it. But before we do, hit that like button, hit subscribe button if you're not already. Let's get into it. Okay, first things first, man. This might be the most Peter Parker we've gotten from a Spider-Man movie since Tobey them. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know how y'all rank the Spider-Man or anything like that, but as far as like casting goes, I've always said that Tom Holland like fits the mold of Peter Parker the best. I know we're not talking like movie for movie, you know, era for era here, but when I say that this is the most Peter Parker we've ever seen since Tobey, I mean as far as like Peter actually living life, right? Because a lot of time passes through this movie, and I feel like the pacing for it's kind of a long movie, but the pacing for it actually works out really well as far as like building that depth and making like the actual memories that we see throughout the movie hit that much more because of the severity of the situation with obviously, you know, nobody remembering who Peter was, and that being the whole kind of crux of the movie in a sense. But that was the first thing. The second thing was that they did something that I feel like the other Spider-Man movies just like have never really been able to do, and that is kind of separate themselves from the love interest in a sense, right? And this was like forced upon them for the simple fact of obviously, you know, Mary Jane, along with everybody else in the world, or I shouldn't say Mary Jane, MJ, because that's not her name in the show. I think her name is Michelle, if I remember correctly. But MJ, Zendaya, in this Spidey universe, just like her, nobody remembers Peter, right? Nobody remembers Spidey. So they can't just jump right back into a whole like love sequence like time has never passed. Like I'll build to that moment, and I'm happy that in this movie there is a love interest aspect of it, but it's more one-sided, and that creates the tension that, you know, will eventually bubble over into something greater in the future, hopefully. But if not, I feel like we've already gotten that portion of Tom Holland's Spider-Man, so I'm not really tripping. But it's a looming thing throughout the whole movie. So the fact that we're able to do that, and then like I said, with the time skips and seamlessly transitioning us from, you know, Peter Parker and as a high schooler to Peter Parker in adulthood, that's a heavy feat, you know, because there's a lot of different directions that it could have went as far as like what job Peter would have, or like, you know, how we even get to his new setup as far as like after leaving the crib with Aunt May. There's just a whole bunch of directions they could have went, and I feel like the route that they went, and that combined with the way they opened the movie, set us up for like an epic you know, just an epic story to tell. And the reason why I say that is because, for one, the story of just being alone, bruh, like that joint hits so different, and I'm just wondering like what kind of made them take this route, because they hit on so many different things in this movie. I'm trying my best not to spoil too much, you know what I'm saying, because this movie's been out, but I'll get more into that into like when I do my actual review later on. This is just how brain dump after fresh seeing the movie. And, you know, I wonder what really went into like the thought behind, you know, basically, you know, Peter becoming a workaholic, right? And then combining that with, you know, him being alone and not really having a family and friends anymore, and juxtaposition that with adding Frank Castle into the mix, with like them basically mirroring each other, with like, if you look at Peter or Spidey, you could see what his future could end up looking like if he doesn't address, you know, him being alone and not having the same friends, or not just even trying to, you know, connect with people because of the risk that comes with him being Spider-Man. That's a huge thing to tackle in one movie. And I feel like they did a really good job at that, while also combining, you know, that with the road gallery, along with the big bad of this movie, who I just did not see coming at all. You know what I'm saying? They talked about Sadie Sink being in this movie prior to it coming out, but I never knew which role she would end up playing. So when we actually see her in the movie, I was mega surprised. I was like, oh man, this makes perfect sense now, because of the nature of the actual villain's powers, which is like basically being able to, you know, mind jump from person to person, place to place type of thing. And it was like a situation where it was like, yo, Peter or Spidey is in a position where he can't really trust anyone, because he felt like he's always being watched. You know what I'm saying? So that, combined with the trauma that Sadie Sink's character has, and if you're still watching at this point, spoilers, Jean Grey, right? It's even crazier, because now it's like, okay, they still haven't said mutants yet, but you know that she's a mutant. We see, you know, Spidey going through this like transformation, right? I call it an X mutation, but you know, his powers are evolving as well, to the point where he has, like, you know, his own organic web shooters. And I thought in a certain situation it was going to turn into Man Spider, and it was going to be a whole, you know, hairy situation, tarantula vibe. So there's plenty of stuff that, you know, I could say about the movie, but the main thing that I just keep coming back to is the way that they were able to, you know, keep the action, keep your like suspense, while also like telling a story about, you know, Peter coming to grips with like, yo, I still need human connection. I can't do this by myself. As much as I want to, it's just not possible. You know, humans aren't meant to be alone. You know what I'm saying? And as much as it might hurt, you know, Frank to say it, like, he understands that too, and he doesn't want that for him. So it was just tough, bro. It was so good. And then on top of that, like, when I get into like, they showed Hulk in the trailer too, so I knew that, you know, Bruce Banner was going to be part of this story. Even his role in the story, to me, was like, I feel like everybody did their part, you know, regardless of how big or small the role is. And we finally got to see the Hulk actually be Hulk and not Professor Hulk. Like, there's level to this thing, right? And even though there's a lot of talk no jutsu within the film, whether it's with the Hulk or whether it's with Jean Grey, or even, you know, Spidey to himself, like, the movie itself does a great job of blending all of those things together and making every moment worth it, bro. So the reveals hit different, the action hits different, the slow-mo hits different, and just the level of understanding of like the gravity of the situation just grows to where like you feel the weight of the tension and the stakes, because it's not so much that there's an Avengers level threat happening in New York, but because you don't know what Jean Grey is capable of as far as like where she is right now, it's scary, because it's like, dang, like, anybody mind could just become mush at any moment, you know, she chooses. So that, combined with like just the Spidey moments that almost felt like video game, like it felt how in the movie, like the movie actually felt like what it was like to play the game, where I felt like I was actually Spider-Man. So like the immersion in that joint was great, the quips were great, the gadgets were great, and just all the different ways and action sequences they use to you know, show the story and show everything that was happening. It just hit different, bro. It hit different in this movie, and I think pound for pound, bro, I don't know if we've gotten a better Spidey movie than this. You know, like, I get the nostalgia, right? I get the nostalgia, and I get the actual like gravity of some of the other situations being, you know, bigger, like bringing all the Spideys together in one movie. That's gonna be hard to top that, right? But if we just talking about movie for movie, pound for pound. And like even, you know, the biggest threat, or like not even threat, but like the biggest reveals as far as like the villains go in this joint was literally just, you know, Scorpion. They had Rhino in that joint, Tombstone, like a whole bunch of different people. But that didn't really matter. That didn't really matter when it came down to the actual like bad guys, you know. And I feel like this movie could have ended twice, and I would have been fine if that got transitioned to another movie, because like once the initial threat of Jean Grey was taken care of, and then we got into like her actual backstory. After that, it was like, oh, now like, you know, there's gonna be a whole nother level to this, you know. And you know, if you've seen the movie, you already know how things end, so I'm not gonna necessarily spoil that part of the movie. But you know, sacrifices were definitely made in this joint, and for the greater good, and it didn't feel cheesy. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm glad that there were some actual consequences for actions in this joint. You know, like now that like, and I don't know how it's gonna play out in the future, because like there's a lot of moving parts in this thing. But you know, I'm excited to see where they're gonna take this thing, because now we're not back to square one, because obviously like they all have lives now, but they're connected again. The main trio of MJ, Ned, and Peter, right? Now it's not the exact same relationship. It's always going to be different because of what they've been through, but there's a connection again. So I'm excited to see what happens from here. But I just can't help but say like there's still so much that I have to unpack, because just the loneliness aspect of the movie hits different, because it's like, you know, even for myself, bro, like as an only child, and then on top of that, like I do a lot of different things, and a lot of times like I'm doing it by myself, right? So to me, it's like, yo, I know I need that same connection that Spidey got, and I do got it. So I'm not mad at that, but it just points out like how, you know, it can affect you in this movie, because like at first the symptoms of Peter's like next mutation came from like looking like to being something like stress, right? And then having a panic attack and stuff like that. But then we wake up and it's like, nah, I'm just mega strong now, you know? And then he gets in a whole other aspect to it that I won't really dive into because it's more integral to the story. But point being is like, if you don't take care of yourself, if you work yourself into the dirt, there's burnout. Even Spidey can burn out, you know what I'm saying? And it's not like he's impervious, like he be getting bodied. So there's a lot to take in, bro. There's a lot to take in with this movie. Even if you want to look at just the path of just, you know, the idea of you having a best friend and then just watching them live their life online and not being able to interact with them. I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. I can't believe that. You know what I'm saying? Like that's gotta suck, you know? So there's a lot of things that they touched on in this movie that are deeper than the surface level. But when I just think about the movie, like it's only 2.5 hours, but it feels longer than that. Let me keep it a buck with you. It feels longer than that. And I think if I was to go back to any movie, it'll probably be just the last two. I feel like the other two movies of as far as like, you know, outside of like Civil War and stuff like that, the other two movies are good as far as like, you know, if you want to get the love interest aspect of like him growing up essentially, and obviously, you know, the relationship with Tony. But Tony wasn't even a factor in this joint. It was mainly Aunt May, you know, and that was like a big thing in the last movie. So it's just something to take into account, you know. And I just really enjoyed the movie. I know it'll probably average out as being like more of an average movie, because it's hard to like just say like automatically this is better than you know, No Way Home, just for the simple fact of like what actually happens in No Way Home as far as like a feat wise. But we just talking like story, movie, pound for pound action, all that. Like this is some wholesome Spidey right here, you know what I'm saying? And I just love every minute of it, bro. That's why it's like it's a 10 for me, because 10 for me is like must see. It's a must-see movie, bro. So if y'all haven't seen it already, definitely go check this out. Hopefully I didn't spoil too much. If y'all enjoyed this brain dump, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button for more, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.